When this channel switched from being an art channel to a paranormal channel, I released a vlog called Paranormal, Fake, Real or Mystery in the Middle. I want to revisit and expand upon that vlog 8 months on. There'll also be an extended version of this subject in Fantastique folio publication due out around Halloween. Now this vlog saw me discussing what I called a gap in the paranormal when it comes to the unexplained. Here is what I mean. Belief in the paranormal is not restricted to ghosts, to the spirits of those who have passed away. It can apply to cryptids, aliens, demons, fairies, and many other subjects. So we have total believers who do not feel the need to prove ghosts are real or the earth is flat. This is often driven by experiences believed by the recipient to be paranormal, and this is all the proof they need. At the end of the day, for the individual, you cannot beat personal experience. Even skeptics will state that they want to see for themselves. The problem here is that few want a personal experience to be debunked, because it is exactly that. It is personal. The problem is the total believer won't always seek to debunk their experience, or to hear someone offer them an alternative or logical explanation. It can be a case of total belief in the paranormal is enough, and no further explanation is required. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the complete skeptic, who doesn't believe in any of the paranormal. Even if a cup levitated in front of them or a ghost appeared out of thin air, they would still refuse to be open to the subject, stating it can't be explained, but there must be some logical explanation. Then you have those who are open to the possibility, including those who have had paranormal experiences that they can't fully explain. Those who believe there is something out there, or at least want to believe, and I am one of those people. But here's what happens with discussions between those who believe and those who don't. A circular argument begins. The skeptics will say you cannot prove the paranormal. The believers will say you cannot disprove the paranormal. This argument bounces back and forth like a ping-pong ball in play forever, in a pointless game of he said, she said. I basically agree that it's easy to state something doesn't exist when it cannot be conclusively proved that it does. However, a line has to be drawn at some point with this argument. And just a reminder here, I am a believer. But I cannot say that purple raindrops with fairies inside might exist. You can't prove they don't. That's not an argument. But come on, let's at least apply some logic here and take things slowly in our paranormal discoveries. There needs to be mystery in this world. It is part of the human condition to wonder what could be out there. For me, as both a researcher and a historian, we have to look back as well as forward to search for answers. Scientific discovery as we know it today is relatively new. In the grand scheme of human history, it is barely a few seconds on our timeline. Science picks up pace in the 1700s with the Enlightenment. It then speeds up in the 1800s with the Industrial Revolution. By the 20th century, it really picks up speed. The first sustained flight by the Wright brothers was in 1903. In 1969, we landed on the moon. And if you don't believe in the moon landing, I'll reinforce that we had already travelled into space before this date. That is 66 years. That isn't even a second on the human timeline. In the 1960s, computers would fill a complete room to complete basic functions. 40 years later, we are carrying computer technology around on our phones. I could give you a very long list, but you get the gist of what I am saying here. Going backwards, scientific discoveries were being made, but what we largely have to rely on, upon the further back we go, are very small pieces of a very large puzzle. Those pieces come in different forms: written, pictorial, and artifacts. We discover the past piece by piece. Many paranormal beliefs are fueled by mythology and folklore, sometimes dating back for centuries. Whereas I have a belief that there is no smoke without fire, much of the written word is open to interpretation and the need to have some understanding of the time in which it was written. Nevertheless, it does impact on the way in which we view the paranormal today, and we need to approach these subjects with open-mindedness. But we also need to be open to proof, to scientific evidence, and yes, to debunking. I am a believer, but I am a believer who wants to be able to separate the fact from the fiction. In order to do that, we need to be prepared for either outcome, proof or disproof. However strongly you believe, you need to research, read, watch, or investigate with an open mind. Treat the undertaking as a blank page. Here's where it gets messy, and why you can't prove it exists, you can't prove it doesn't exist argument does not help. The human instinct is strong. We are genetically programmed to use our instincts for survival, and it is a difficult thing to ignore. Now, for example, I have had a lot of experiences that could be explained. I have had a handful that no matter how hard I try, I cannot explain. Can I prove these experiences are paranormal? No, I can't. Yet my instincts tell me they are. A skeptic will tell you you believe it was paranormal because you want to believe it. They will bring in psychology, the way the brain works, and they could very well be right. But here's part of the mess. Just because something can be explained logically or scientifically doesn't mean that is the real explanation. Now, that isn't me ignoring science. I want to see science and logic investigate events and apply knowledge to findings. If a door closes on its own, science will explain it in a number of ways: air pressure, tension, etc., which will 99.9% probably explain the occurrence. The problem for those who believe it to be paranormal is it's almost impossible to prove that it was a paranormal occurrence. And until the paranormal world figures out a way of presenting evidence which dismisses the scientific explanation, I feel we have to listen to logic. Another example is déjà vu, which has a scientific explanation. But just because it can be explained doesn't automatically mean that is the explanation. Scientists and skeptics will always look to science and logic first. That is their job. That is their belief system. They have far more evidence on their side than believers do. We need to accept and deal with that. The pressure of the burden of proof is on the believers, and that is the way that it should be. It can be difficult for some skeptics to even entertain the idea of the paranormal. It can also be difficult for some believers to accept that their paranormal experiences can be logically explained. So what I personally feel that both sides need to focus on is that halfway point, which I like to call the mystery in the middle. The grey area between believing and non-believing, between proof and no proof, is where the mystery sits. And for both sides, we need that mystery. Science needs to solve puzzles, theories, occurrences. Believers in the paranormal need to explore the endless possibilities of what could be out there. That mystery in the middle is what keeps us asking questions, keeps asking, investigating, researching, experimenting. These are what matters. So ultimately we need to be open to all possibilities, but be prepared to put those possibilities under the microscope and accept, or at least consider, the conclusions. Nothing in the paranormal has been scientifically proven. As a community, we need to deal with that, but we also need to use it to continue to work hard at our research, our analysis, and our investigations. The debunking community is not about disproving the paranormal. It's about striving to reinforce the absolute necessity of having honest, impartial, and thorough investigating. In terms of the paranormal, you're not going to believe anything if you're a complete skeptic. You are going to believe too much if you have blind faith. Be in that grey area, be in that area of mystery, but be prepared for the answers to go either way.